भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवः सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवः सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः सत्यं ज्ञानमनन्तं ब्रह्म सत्यं ज्ञानमनन्तं ब्रह्म सत्यं ज्ञानमनन्तं ब्रह्म सत्यं ज्ञानमनन्तं ब्रह्म
Sairam, everyone. Welcome back to yet another session of our Region 10's Inspirational channel. As you just saw, we have this very beautiful young family. That's Janani, Kurt, and their young children, Kavi and Jaya. I have known Janani since she was a little girl. She has the blessing of growing up in a Sai family, starting with her grandfather who lived in Parthi, had very close association with Swami, Srinivasan Mama, who has come many times to Dallas, and we have had the good fortune of many satsangs with him. He used to be the editor of Sanatana Sarathi in Tamil in Parthi. And her parents, who are very devoted to Swami, her aunts, the whole family. Similarly, when she met her life partner, Kurt, who is also very blessed from a Sai family. His dad lived in Parthi for several years. And Janani and Kurt have the additional blessing of getting married in Puttaparthi and starting their life together, making a home here in Dallas. Janani applies Swami's principles in her work as a physician as well. Kurt is a musician, and they both have imbibed Swami's teachings to bring up the two children. As you saw so beautifully, they all sang. So it's our great privilege and pleasure to invite you, Janani and Kurt, to share about what of Swami's teachings about the truth. What do they mean to you? How have you learned? What lessons you have learned? And so on. So I'm looking forward to sitting back and enjoying listening to you talk about what truth means to you. Welcome to this.
Sairam,
It's very nice and a privilege to be here. We really are grateful for this opportunity. We offer our humble pranams at the feet of Swami. Swami is a very important part of our marriage and our household. We deeply love Swami, and it is our true, sincere wish that we understand how to uphold truth, satya, in this household. I would say we're not always completely successful, but we are sincere in our desire to do this. And so, what we thought we could do today is because so much of our experience in this modern world is learning how to apply what Swami's beautiful words of wisdom are in our lives, that we would kind of open up our internal conversation to you all. So the idea is that as we hear Swami's teachings, we would share some of our reflections. Again, from what I know and have experienced with Swami, everybody's individual understanding of Swami's teachings is very personal. I don't think there's a universal, sort of way to understand Swami's teachings. And Swami has this way of taking really simple concepts and explaining it in such a simple way that it makes so much sense. And then when it comes to applying them in our daily life, I think that's where the true education happens. And so, kind of what we envisioned doing today was to hear Swami's beautiful words and then ask kind of each other questions about it and learn and discuss how we've applied it. And we hope that the words that come to us through Swami we could serve as an instrument to promote greater understanding and reflection in anyone who listens. So our prayer to Swami is, please, communicate through us so that we interpret your teachings in the right way, and that we offer this with as little ego and with as much love as we can muster up. So, would you like to add anything to that?
No, that's good.
Okay. So then I think we can begin by listening to sort of the first excerpt from Swami's discourse that really stood out to us.
Swami has said the distinction between the apparent and the real, the true, should be properly understood. For instance, it is apparent that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. But the truth is, the sun is stationary and neither rises or sets. It is the revolution of the earth round itself at a speed of 1,000 miles an hour that is the cause of the phenomenon of day and night and the apparent rising and setting of the sun. The relevance of the distinction between truth, falsehood, and apparent fact is not limited to natural phenomenon alone. It is equally relevant in the spiritual sphere. The quest for truth in the spiritual field provides proofs for the existence of God. In every man, at every moment, a divine effulgence is always shining. Man has not taken birth purely for a selfish purpose. He has to strive with others to lead an exemplary life. So, Janani, what do you take from this?
So I really love the way that Swami took something that happens every day and just it's an obvious thing, but it's something we don't think about very much. The fact that we say the sun rises and then the sun sets, and that seems to be truth. But truly, there's this larger perspective of the fact that it's actually the earth that's revolving around the sun. And so I think it's a really basic concept, but it causes me to question a lot of the things that we sort of live our lives by, going and taking the effort to understand the deeper significance of them. And as Swami mentions, the spiritual nature of all things. I think that's the fundamental truth in a kind of more profound sense. That's what I would see. How about you?
Yeah, it's an interesting concept because in our daily lives we get wrapped up in our little world and we think only in our sphere or our world, but there's a much bigger picture, and the reality is the truth is bigger than we can understand or that we tend to look at most of the time. So I think that's what you were saying, and I think it's a valuable um, thing that Swami is talking about here. So when, for example, how would you apply something like this in your daily life? Or when do you?
Yeah. Well, I know from what I think about, like, as you say, the things that we take for granted or the daily activities and tasks that we do, I think one trap that I can fall into is really believing that the result of the action depends on what I'm doing. Like, the outcome of a certain project, or the interaction with somebody and the outcome of that conversation, or even with my children, our children, like the ability of them to learn and understand depends on me sort of trying to force the issue or really putting in all my effort. And I think back to what the truth of that situation really is based on what we've just heard Swami say. And the truth is that it's not the effort that produces that outcome. I mean, a lot of that is sort of the divine grace, but it's having that perspective that there's a deeper spiritual nature to the work that we're doing. And if we can remember that, then the attachment to the outcome and the result is no longer so central. And then I get much more relaxed about the task at hand. So I think one thing that you had read from what Swami said is so much of it's not the quest for truth is a spiritual concept that relates to our daily life. So that's something that I think when I find myself getting tense about something or getting really attached to an outcome, it's helpful to step back and remember the truth of the situation is that my effort does matter and I am an instrument, but the ultimate outcome of a situation is really God's grace, Swami's grace. How about you?
Well said.
How do you apply these teachings in your daily life?
Um, it's a good question. I think for the family life, um, touching on that a bit, it's important to model, good behavior and truth. And I'm thinking about, like, for example, disciplining our kids or asking them not to do this or explaining why they should do this. Um, but the importance of the truth, the bigger picture in that is also it's a reminder for us to also be better and to model that behavior as well. So whatever I'm concerned about my kids doing or not doing is a point for me to give self-reflection. The truth of it is that it's an opportunity to also have self-reflection for myself, so I can try to model that and be better myself.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. That makes me think of, you know, I've heard people, different Swami students talk about when we feel, when we feel confused about truth. And I've heard Swami say this too. Truth is the unchanging thing. It's the thing that stays constant. So it would make sense that if we're trying to teach our children or, send a message, that we are that message ourselves so that there's a unity of what we're communicating and who we are. Because truth being unity is like a huge part of truth and that unchanging nature. Everything that is changing is not truly truth because it's changing. And so that reminded me of that fact too. Any other reflections to share on that specific teaching about truth, or questions or things that seem challenging?
Well, the part about the earth is actually revolving around the sun. So, I mean, just to get to that point, we should be revolving around Swami in that way, I think.
Yeah.
Make him the center of the universe, or his teachings the center of the universe, and what do you call
The revolution.
it? Yeah.
Yeah. That's really profound. I agree with that. It's really similar to how I think in that discourse, Swami talks about the sun setting and rising are facts. He uses the word facts, but the truth is different from facts, which I had to really reflect on because I think in our society, we interpret facts as being truth. But we also know that how we present facts influences our understanding of the truth. And I think something like what Swami is saying is a deeper way to understand that, yes, we can kind of live our lives around these facts, around these things that we read, the academic knowledge, the book knowledge, but we should always be recognizing that they're just kind of an orientation for how we practically live our lives. We always have to be recognizing the deeper truth, the deeper understanding that everything kind of revolves around Swami and the God that's within us. So it's kind of like providing a center, I think, of a foundation of stability for how to live one's life when we have that regard, that we're not swayed by these facts, but we have a strong understanding of who we really are and how those facts help us orient around the true being inside.
I don't know if I'll get this right, but it was a saying that Swami had about the difference between him and I was just that he realized who he was. And that when we realize who we are, then we can be that same.
Yeah. Yeah, I have heard Swami say that as well, that the truth is that we are God. The facts are probably that we don't really act like God. At least I don't. And I behave very humanly sometimes, which is so interesting because just as it seems so definite that the sun is setting and disappearing when it's night and the sun is rising, it seems so truthful at the moment, but that's like a Maya, an illusion. And this whole human body and the human behaviors are a result of us, I think, if I'm understanding it correctly, attaching too much to the thoughts and sort of the facts that are swirling around in our head and failing to realize the deeper I. Um, I reminds me of like one time when I was meditating and I heard Swami's voice tell me very clearly vibration, vibration, vibration. And those were three words that were spoken in his beautiful, sweet voice. And I spent a lot of time wondering, what does that mean? Like, what's the significance of that? And I later, of course, as these things happen, you ask a question to Swami and then you get the answer. And, I was reading a bit of a discourse on purity that evening and actually read this paragraph that Swami said about thoughts and how thoughts are the foundation of vibration. And also when we think about what we perceive to be truth, I feel like our thoughts are our guideposts, what we pay attention to, the thoughts that we choose to really focus on and live our lives by, that sends out vibrations into the world. It sends out vibrations that affect other people and entire societies. So I think our tools for experiencing truth are really what we choose to value in our thoughts and also what we choose to discard and what we choose to say, no, this is not real. We have that ability, that free will to make that choice. I think that's our secret, like, superpower. If we focus on thoughts that promote good vibrations and just gently discard the thoughts that are promoting negative vibrations, I think we can pave our way closer and closer toward truth. Awesome. So we could probably watch the next discourse.
పవిత్రమైనటువంటి యొక్క పరమాత్మ తత్వమునే మన హృదయమునందు ప్రతిష్ఠింప చేసుకోవాలి.
We should install spirituality in our hearts.
ఇది చేసుకునేటువంటి విషయం కాదు.
It's not the one that
ఒకరు అందించేటువంటి ప్రజెంట్ కాదు.
it cannot be gifted.
ఒక కంపెనీ సప్లై చేసేటువంటి పదార్థం కాదు.
It's not supplied by any company.
తన యందే ఉంటున్నది.
It lies in you.
సర్వతః పాణిపాదం, తన యందే ప్రతిష్ఠ అయి ఉంటుండాలి.
It's installed in you.
కానీ దానిని సరైన రీతిలో మనం వినియోగించుకోవటం లేదు.
But you are not making proper use.
ఈ తత్వమును గుర్తించినటువంటి వ్యక్తులకు ఎట్టి భేదమును లేక ఎంత దూరమును కూడా విచారించక అనేక విధమైనటువంటి యొక్క ఆనందమును గృహలో కోరి పరిస్థితులకు ప్రభావమునకు గురికాక వెంటాడుతూ ఉంటారు.
Those such feelings will not observe any kind of distances. They will be blissful all the time, not disturbed by circumstances.
ప్రయోజనం లేదు.
It's not enough if you're here.
దాని యొక్క మాధుర్యమును గుర్తించడానికి ప్రయత్నించాలి.
You should make an effort to enjoy the sweetness.
కమలం పైననే ఉంటుంటాది కప్ప.
The frog is present on the fruit.
కానీ ఆ కమలమునందున్నటువంటి మకరందమును కప్ప కోలలేదు.
But the frog cannot experience the nectar contained in the flower.
దూరం నుంచి వచ్చి ఆ యొక్క తుమ్మెదలు ఆ మకరందాన్ని త్రాగిపోతుంటారు.
But honeybees come from far off places and enjoy the nectar in a flower.
కనుకనే మానవత్వంలో అట్టి పవిత్రమైనటువంటి ఒక దివ్యత్వము ఉన్నదనేటువంటి సత్యాన్ని గుర్తించడానికి ప్రయత్నించాలి.
Therefore we should make an attempt to understand the sacredness is present in human life.
గడిచిపోతుండాలి. ప్రచండ మారుతం వలె కాలం అతి వేగంగా గడిచిపోతుండాలి.
The time is passing by like a whirlwind.
ఆయు ప్రమాణం అనేటువంటిది మంచుగడ్డ వలె క్షణమును కూడాను కరిగిపోతుండాలి.
Life span is melting like an ice.
కానీ మానవుడు కర్తవ్యాన్ని గుర్తించక మునిపే కన్ను మూస్తున్నాడు.
But man is bringing his life to a close without recognizing his
మానవుని యొక్క ప్రధాన
aim.
కర్తవ్యము.
What is the main responsibility of man? Duty of man.
No. కనుకనే వాట్ ఇస్ ది పర్పస్ ఆఫ్ లైఫ్?
What is the purpose of life?
ఈ యొక్క మన జీవితం యొక్క పర్పస్ ను గుర్తించుకోవడానికి తగిన ప్రయత్నం చేయటం లేదు.
We are not making effort to realize the purpose of life.
నాకు ధనం కావాలి,
I want money.
నాకు ఉద్యోగం కావాలి,
I want job.
నాకు సుఖం కావాలి,
I want happiness.
ఆనందం కావాలి.
I want-
ఎక్కడి నుంచి వస్తుంది?
Where from you get them?
దైవానుగ్రహం అనేటువంటి దానికి దూరం అయిపోయి ఈ విధమైనటువంటి పాంచభౌతికమైనటువంటి శరీరమును పోషించుకునే నిమిత్తమై సర్వ సుఖమును కావాలని ఆశిస్తున్నాము.
You are far off from God's grace, and to keep this body, sustain this body, you
ఇలాంటి
struggle along.
లౌకికమైన భౌతికమైన ప్రాకృతమైనటువంటి సుఖమును ఉండినప్పటికీ అది సుఖములు కానే కాదు.
There is no comfort, there is no happiness so long it is worldly and
దీనిని
physical.
త్యాగరాజు కూడా చెప్పాడు.
This said by Chagra.
ఇది చాలా సుఖమా, ఈశ్వర సన్నిధి చాలా సుఖమా?
Is it wealth that confers you happiness, or the
నిజంగా
proximity?
భగవత్ అనుగ్రహానికే పాత్రులైతే ఈ నిధి ఎంత మాత్రం మనకు?
If you are recipient of God's grace, what do you care for money?
కనుకనే మొట్టమొదట సన్నిధిని మనం కోరడానికి తగినటువంటి ప్రయత్నం చేయాలి.
Therefore, we should make an effort to earn this proximity to the
ఈ
divine.
లౌకిక సుఖములు కాదు.
The worldly happiness is no happiness.
Okay. So, Kurt, what did you take away from that excerpt on truth?
Well, one thing he was speaking of is how time is just whizzing past, and we need to seize the time that we have and the opportunities and not let them escape us to grow and be better. And so that, I guess, tying into truth, that's an eternal truth about time. I mean, some people would say time's not linear, but for us right now it sure is.
For sure.
So that's I think that's a powerful statement right there. And then tying in the fact of us not chasing successes as much as what he was saying, proximity or to God, but to, I think more importantly, the teachings or the opportunities of progress and making ourselves better.
Yeah. Yeah, this is like a favorite discourse of mine that I often watch, this 4-minute kind of clip, because I don't know about you, but sometimes I go through little existential crises of what is my purpose? Why am I here? And mostly practically, like, what am I meant to do with my skills? Or I know you've talked about this too. And this just kind of puts it in perspective for me because, you know, I I talk to my dad a lot. He's a really important mentor to me and my mom. And I've often asked them this question: how do you know what you're meant to do in life? And like they pointed me to this statement of Swami, which is like you were saying, it's not like we choose with ego what our purpose is. It's like anything that we do, if we have this quest to truly experience divinity and our own divinity in that, that becomes the ultimate purpose. I think the purpose of what we're meant to do is to do tasks in such a way that we recognize our own divinity. I would say that in my experience, I work a lot with patients, and this doesn't always happen, but it's really interesting to me because sometimes I see people in a lot of pain and they have been through a lot and they're really suffering, and they've kind of lost hope. And I don't even have to ask Swami in those moments. It's like something automatic happens in me where I start saying things that I know are not coming from my intellect or my brain. Like they're coming in a deeper way. Like the things that I'm saying are not only like something that are meant, it's not meant to just help a patient, but they're actually like echoes of teachings for myself about the fundamental principle of yat bhavam tat bhavati. As we really feel what we express, our bhavam is what our experience is. That's what we see as in our reality. And somehow that message comes up over and over again, working with very difficult situations with people who are really undergoing a lot of suffering. And I just find it really remarkable how in those moments, I'm not even aware, I'm not even like thinking about what I'm going to say, but it's automatically happening. And in my view, like that's one way to live a purpose, to be in the flow state where it's no longer something you have to forcibly control, but it's something effortless. It's like the wellspring of divinity within you that's serving as a tool for seva, a tool for love, a tool for connection and unity. Does that resonate with you at all? Like the flow state and doing a work, doing one's duty just for the sake of the task and just being completely immersed in it as a means to experience our divinity? Does that like ring true to you at all?
I think so, but not in the same kind of profound setting as with you. But no, I think if we have if we're tuned in, as you were saying, the effort is it's effortless as far as how we respond. How if we respond to a situation, for example, somebody in need or a service opportunity or something of that nature, it's just who we are at that point, right? That's ideal, not to have to stop and think like, oh, does this person really need help, or what is, it's just a natural truth from inside us, so to speak, of who we want to be at that, or who we can be, our best version of ourselves in that moment.
Yeah, that's a great point because it seems like what you're saying is when we can avoid falling in that trap of ego, like, oh, like, I'm going to help somebody, but it's more of an automatic, like, almost an intuitive sort of action. That's like the best feeling, right? Because at least for me, if I think too much about something, sometimes it's important to weigh the pros and cons, right? Like we were talking about. But I often find that I can get trapped by ego into feeling like pressured that I have to somehow make the right decision or do the right thing. So, what are your techniques for like lowering the volume on ego and acting in accordance with your true nature?
I would say it's sort of like a gut feeling is the best way to describe it. I think if you're spent enough time or had enough good experiences around Swami's teachings and absorbed even just a tiny bit of it, that has a profound effect on your inner being, and thus your gut, or trusting my gut, is generally how I feel about things. So it's not always depending obviously on situation, but like feeling of what's right or not right to do in the moment. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I remember that reading too once that like that true gut feeling is sort of the voice that promotes unity, right? Because it's always going to be something that's for the better good and promotes love and promotes harmony. And that's like one way to know, because I don't know about you, but I have a lot of different voices in my head that sometimes tell me like to like fear versus like, is this the right thing to do? It's always helpful to go with that unchanging voice, the one that's, and you know, for me, the voice is always, the unchanging voice is always telling me that everything is okay, which may not seem real in the moment. Like if things are happening around the world or things are happening in society, it's easy to get caught up in that. And you know, even turmoil or trouble or a patient suffering or somebody suffering or kids are fighting or you know, many challenges. It's easy to get caught up in that. But I believe that deep down inside, like the faith and truth, right? And Swami's talked about faith as being like we really have this attitude of like whatever is happening for our own good, and like that's like equanimity. And I think that's like another pathway to truth, right? Than to like lower that ego, because if we're caught in that selfishness where we think, well, how is this affecting us and what am I to do, I think that's where it gets, that's where I think, you know, focusing on unity and focusing on that, like pain being an interval between two pleasures and whatnot is really important. Yeah.
This is a little parallel, but it just made me think of when we had met and got to know each other a bit. Prior to that, I think I had been wondering, well, when am I going to meet the right person? And I know I was putting an effort to some degree. There was one Sai auntie who actually spoke to my mom at one point and said, "Hey, let us know. We can go through the auntie network or something like this." And she asked my mom, was like, "What do you think of that?" And I was like, "I don't think that's gonna be the right route for me. But thanks." Um, but so trusting my gut feeling there, feeling the truth and the connection to Swami, it was a long roundabout journey, but I think it came to a point where I said, "Well, Swami, you're gonna make it happen. Obviously, I'm gonna put in my effort, but you're gonna find the right life partner for me and the family that I am so blessed to have. It's all come together." So that's all a truth, or so to speak, an understanding that I've gotten, you know, from being in the Psi fold and looking, or not, looking, but also just yearning and for the right partner in the family life. So that in itself was a great blessing, and I saw the trials and tribulations prior, and also, with us is all a gift, as you were saying. That's what made me think of that, because it's easy to feel not happy when things are not going our way, but my consistent experience has been that when something doesn't go our way, it's usually ends up for the best in a way we don't see at the moment. So
It's true.
that's a truth, I guess, that I've come to understand. And it's challenging when things don't go our way, for sure. It's really not fun, but seeing what didn't go our way, how that led to something that opened up something way better or beyond what we could imagine even sometimes. So that's I would say that's exactly a way to explain or describe how we got together.
Yeah, it's really true. I think every time I'm always reminded of Swami talking about bringing out the shining gold ornament out of that dull piece of gold. And like, it's not easy to go through the trials and tribulations, but having that attitude of knowing the bigger picture Swami is taking care. It's always interesting because, now that Swami's physical presence isn't there, it's really causing me to go deep to hear the Swami inside of me, right? Because that's the relationship that we have to cultivate now. And Swami was always a reflection of aspects of divinity within us, as what he said, that everything that we see in Swami is a reflection of what's present in us, which is really profound. And to get to that stage, I know that during some of my most challenging times, especially with family life or with your children, or when they're sick or when something's going wrong, you have that inherent power of divinity to overcome these obstacles. If we can truly sort of believe in that resilience and our ability to channel that divine, because it's hard. I remember one thing you always told me when I was like disappointed if an opportunity didn't materialize, and you would sort of say, well, something better is going to come along. And it may not feel like it in the moment, but it's true. I mean, that's kind of what's really amazing when we think back to those things. And part of this whole process, and even kind of coming together to do this sort of discussion on truth, has been for me to remind myself of that truth. And that bhajan, like, remind me, my Lord, it's so profound. I think of it all the time because it's simple words, but they carry such great meaning, because just like Hanuman or just anybody, when they're in the depths of despair or suffering, can remember who what they're made of, what's inside of them, what lies in store, what could potentially occur. It's actually quite uplifting. It's a practice for sure, but I think one other lesson that I've taken too is it's not about executing everything perfectly every single time. I know that Swami already calls us as Prema Swarupalara. He already calls us the embodiments of divine love. Even if we make mistakes, he knows our true nature. So I know one part of truth is not to get too down on ourselves for not being truthful or maybe making some mistakes, as we can pick ourselves back up, and as Swami says, drop it like a handkerchief and move forward, knowing that past is past and moving forward. I think that's another big lesson, to have self-compassion in this process, because Swami is a strict teacher and he has the highest standards because he knows what we're capable of. But at the same time, I know he's so loving and understanding and patient, and we have to show that same patience with ourselves. This is not necessarily something that happens overnight. So, anything else you want to share in closing?
I think you summed it up pretty well right there.
Yeah. Yeah. So we really, again, thank you, Vijay Shayanti, for the opportunity. We hope that some of our musings have resonated, and I know we've grown a lot with this experience. We're really grateful to talk about Swami and this very important principle of truth.
Sairam.
Sairam.
Sairam, my name is Kavi and I am 9 years old.
Hi, Sairam. My name is Jaya. I am 4 years old.
And now let's ask some questions. So, Jaya,
What?
does truth mean to you? Like, does it mean like not lying, or does it mean like what does it mean to you? Does it mean not lying or
Not lying.
okay? So it doesn't. So okay. And what's one example that you've used truth? Like maybe told when you've done a mistake. Like maybe what's one example of that? If you can think of one. You can think of one?
Do you remember anything that you've seen?
Okay. Well, Jaya, I have seen you do some stuff like there was one day I remember that I feel like you did something wrong. I don't remember what it was, and you told mom, even though it and took a lot of courage. So that's what I can remember, Jaya.
Okay.
And one example of truth that I have done is so 6 months ago I was practicing so I had this day off, and my mom wanted me to practice piano and guitar, and I did do a few practice rounds, but I told my mom that I didn't do the full amount of practice. Okay. Now, Jaya, last question. Do you think that truth, do you think that this household has a lot of truth in it? Like, do you think that it has, do you think that everyone's usually tells the truth, or do you think that sometimes people don't tell the truth, but sometimes they do, or do you think that mostly we do?
Mostly we do.
Okay. And that commences our conversation.
That concludes our conversation. Okay, Sairam. Sairam.
Oh. Sairam.
Bhavani Ma, Ambe Bhavani Ma. Bhavani Ma, Ambe Bhavani Ma. Ambe Bhavani Ma, Sai Bhavani Ma. Ambe Bhavani Ma, Sai Bhavani Ma. Jai Jai Bhavani Ma, Ambe Bhavani Ma. Jai Jai Remind me, my Lord, remind me, my Lord, remind me, my Lord, who I am. Remind me, my Lord, remind me, my Lord, remind me, my Lord, who I am.
Thank you again, Jaya, Kavi, Kurt, and Janani. This was so beautifully done. One extra special evening. I really liked the way you thought deeply about each of the discourses that you chose of Swami's and how it applies to your personal life and what teachings you have taken. And listening to you, I'm sure, rings a bell in and other young parents can relate to some of the things that you talked about as well. So I really thank your whole family for coming and doing this. And all of you that joined us this evening, I thank you as well for joining us in this journey. Swami inspires us to progress in this path uh, towards the quest of truth. And so, as I was telling in the beginning of this year, the first quarter we were going to talk about truth. So, this coming quarter, we are going to talk about the next core value that Swami talks to us about, right conduct, dharma. So, I look forward to having all of you here on the first Wednesday of April as well. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the month. Sai Ram, and thank you.